Her eyes were yellow, the iris and pupil both, lit from somewhere inside with a light that had no warmth in it at all. Her mouth was red, not lipstick red, not the plum lacquer of her nails, but red in the way that means only one thing. She looked at Rosalie across the small room, and for 3 or 4 seconds, neither of them moved. Welcome to The Night Visitors, where we share purportedly true accounts of interactions with vampires and other supernatural predators. I'm James, a paranormal researcher and lifelong vampire enthusiast, coming to you from Transylvania. The following is a true story with names and identifying details changed to protect the privacy of those involved. In the mid-1990s, before the internet had fully colonized our social lives, there existed a network of paranormal discussion forums that ran through dial-up bulletin board systems. Clunky, text-only, slow-moving, but absolutely alive with people who had no other place to put things that they had seen. I spent a fair amount of time on one of them in particular, a forum devoted to vampire encounters, and it was here that I first met a woman named Rosalie who went by the screen name Jade. She was older than most of the regulars, and she posted infrequently but at length, and when she did, people paid attention. She told me this story in a private message thread that stretched over 3 or 4 evenings in the fall of 1996, typed out in installments, as if she were still deciding how much of it to tell me. I am happy to share it here tonight. In the summer of 1963, Rosalie was 19 years old and absolutely broke. She had grown up in Dorchester, the second oldest of 5 children, in a household where money was managed with the grim precision of a wartime ration. Her father drove a delivery truck and her mother was a cleaning lady. Rosalie had been accepted to the University of Massachusetts on a partial scholarship, which covered tuition but left room and board, books, and every other material fact of student life to her own ingenuity. She had spent the previous year working double shifts at a diner in Fields Corner, and by early June she had saved enough money for her first semester's expenses plus a small cushion. Then the diner changed hands, cut its staff, and Rosalie was without a job. She found a new job through a listing tacked to a telephone pole near Andrew Square. Waitstaff wanted, evenings and weekends, the Lotus Lantern, Tyler Street, Chinatown. Experience preferred, will train. She had experience. She made the call from the phone booth on the corner and was told to come in the following Tuesday. The Lotus Lantern occupied the ground floor of a narrow building on Tyler Street, tucked between a laundry and a shop that sold herbs and dried goods out of wooden bins. From the outside, it was easy to miss, just a painted wooden sign and a red door. But inside, it opened up into something considerably more elaborate. From the ceiling hung a plethora of paper lanterns in yellow and red. Carved tiki figures flanked the bar on either side, their expressions ranging from benign to unsettling depending on the hour and the lighting. There were booths upholstered in bamboo-patterned vinyl and a low stage in the back corner where on weekends a trio played a repertoire of Hawaiian standards and smooth jazz. The bar stocked Mai Tais, zombies, scorpion bowls, and a house specialty called the Lotus Sling that came in a ceramic mug shaped like the Moai statues of Easter Island. It was, in other words, a perfectly ordinary Cantonese Polynesian restaurant of the kind that had done brisk business in American cities since the end of the war, riding the wave of South Pacific nostalgia that Trader Vic's had started and half the country had followed. The owner was a woman named Mrs. Lamb, Rosalie met her on that first Tuesday, standing behind the bar counting receipts with the focused serenity of someone who had been counting money for a very long time. She was dressed in a fitted silk cheongsam the color of deep jade, with a high collar and gold buttons along the side seam. Her hair was pulled back without a strand of it out of place. She wore a jade pendant at her throat on a thin gold chain, and her nails were lacquered with the precise red of a ripe plum. Rosalie placed Mrs. Lamb somewhere in her late 30s, perhaps 40 at most. "You have restaurant experience?" Mrs. Lamb said, more a statement than a question. "Yes, ma'am. 2 years at a diner in Dorchester." "A diner is not a restaurant." "No, ma'am." "But you can carry 4 plates and make change in your head?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good. Those are the only skills I require of you." She returned to her receipts. "You start Thursday." The work itself was straightforward enough. The dinner crowd was largely professionals and couples from the Back Bay and Beacon Hill areas who wanted something a little exotic, the word used without irony in those days. And the kitchen sent out its plates of chow mein and sweet and sour pork alongside the rum drinks with brisk efficiency. Rosalie was quick on her feet and good with the customers, and within a few weeks she had settled into the rhythm of the place. What she had not figured out was Mrs. Lamb. The woman was in the restaurant every evening without fail, always dressed as if she were attending a dinner party afterward, moving through the dining room with an unhurried precision that made everything seem slightly choreographed. She managed the staff with few words and apparently no emotional investment whatsoever. Though Rosalie noticed she was never actually unkind, merely distant, as though separated from the ordinary texture of human interaction. She was also, Rosalie became increasingly convinced, doing something she shouldn't. The men came in through the back, through the alley entrance by the kitchen. Young men, Chinese, dressed like laborers, work boots, dark trousers, jackets too heavy for August. They never ate. They never came out into the dining room. They went directly through the beaded curtain at the end of the hall and into the small room beyond it that Mrs. Lamb used as an office. And they stayed for 20 minutes or so, and then they left. Sometimes Mrs. Lamb would emerge afterward to speak quietly with the cook. Sometimes she went back to the bar and resumed counting money as if nothing happened. Rosalie's working theory, developed over several weeks and confided to her best friend Lois, was that Mrs. Lamb was running numbers. The clothing, the cash, the backdoor visitors, it added up, she felt, to something related to organized crime. The other possibility she entertained, with considerably more embarrassment, was that Mrs. Lamb was involved with these men in some other way, and that what went on behind the beaded curtain was of a personal nature. Then came the night in late October when Rosalie, distracted and looking for a quiet place to tie the shoelace that had come undone, pushed through the beaded curtain without thinking. The room beyond was small, lit by a single lamp with a paper shade. Mrs. Lamb was seated in the chair behind her desk, and across from her, slumped in the wooden chair that visitors usually occupied, was one of the young men. Mrs. Lamb's head was bent over his throat. She lifted her head. Her eyes were yellow, the iris and pupil both, lit from somewhere inside with a light that had no warmth in it at all. Her mouth was red, not lipstick red, not the plum lacquer of her nails, but red in the way that means only one thing. She looked at Rosalie across the small room, and for 3 or 4 seconds, neither of them moved. Then Rosalie walked backward through the beaded curtain, took her coat from the hook by the kitchen door, and went home. She did not sleep. By 4 in the morning, she had convinced herself of several things in sequence. That she had imagined it, that she had not imagined it, that she should go to the police, that the police would not believe her, that she should never return to the Lotus Lantern, and that she needed the money too badly not to. It was the last thought that brought her back the following evening, walking down Tyler Street in the late autumn dark with her heart pounding. Mrs. Lamb was at the bar. She looked up when Rosalie came in. She waited until the other staff were in the kitchen, and then she came to where Rosalie was tying on her apron and stood close enough that Rosalie could smell her perfume, which was something floral. "This place is not for you," Mrs. Lamb said quietly. Rosalie looked at her. "I need the work." "I know, but what you saw, that is the least of what goes on here. And you are a good person, and good people should not be in the middle of it." She paused, and her expression shifted into something Rosalie couldn't read. "Those men come to me willingly. I want you to know that. What I take from them, I take with their full understanding." "What do you take from them?" Mrs. Lamb's mouth curved faintly. "Less than you are imagining. Enough for what I need." She reached into the pocket of her cheongsam and produced a plain white envelope, which she placed in Rosalie's hand. "This will cover what you still owe for your schooling. Do not count it here." Rosalie stared at the envelope. "I don't understand why you would." "Because I'm not without sentiment." She reached up to the clasp of the gold chain at her throat and unclipped it with 2 fingers, and she pressed it into Rosalie's palm beside the envelope. The jade pendant, cool and smooth, carved into the shape of a small dragon coiled around itself. "My grandfather carved this for me when I was a girl. He was a skilled craftsman. I have carried it with me for a long time. It will bring you luck." Rosalie looked up at her. "Go to school," Mrs. Lamb said. "Become something. Do not come back here." She turned and retreated into the back room, and that was the last time Rosalie ever saw her. She did go to school. She studied public health, graduated in 1966, spent 20 years working for the city of Boston, married twice, and raised a daughter. The white envelope had contained enough money to cover her remaining tuition and a semester's housing, in cash, in the precise amount owed, which she had never told anyone, certainly not Mrs. Lamb. She let that detail sit in the back of her mind and tried not to examine it too closely. In the 1980s, she had the pendant Mrs. Lamb gave her appraised on a whim when a colleague mentioned a reputable jeweler who specialized in Chinese antiques. The jeweler told her the pendant was carved jade of excellent quality, and that based on the style and certain fine details of the technique, it was almost certainly the work of a well-regarded craftsman from the Canton region who had been active in the 1880s. Rosalie thanked him and drove home in silence. Mrs. Lamb had told her that her grandfather had carved it for her when she was a girl. If the pendant had been made in the 1880s and she had received it in childhood, Mrs. Lamb would have been, at a conservative estimate, somewhere between 80 and 100 years old in 1963. The woman at the bar looked 40 at most. I have thought about Rosalie's story more times than I can count, particularly one specific detail. The young men who came through the alley door in their work clothes, who went willingly, who understood the terms. If Mrs. Lamb was a vampire, as this story would indicate, she had arrived at some arrangement with the living that was, by her own account, consensual, and she recognized something in a 19-year-old girl from Dorchester that was worth protecting and helped her get a decent start in life. The pendant is, according to Rosalie, still in her possession. At least it was at the time she told me her story. I hope you have enjoyed tonight's episode. If you happen to be viewing this on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. And if you would like to share your personal encounter with the undead, please contact me at thenightvisitorsvrs@gmail.com or share here in the comment section. Thank you for listening. A special thanks to composer Tim Kulig for our intro music, Haunted House. You can find The Night Visitors on your favorite podcast platform and thenightvisitors.com. You can also subscribe to our newsletter where you will receive each week's episode directly in your inbox, as well as articles on vampire lore and vampires in popular culture.